Hello student, I welcome you all in your own YouTube channel CamGuru Academy. So today we are going to talk about chapter number 3rd of our book named Colloidal Chemistry. Colloidal Chemistry. So as the name suggests, this chapter is mainly about colloidal, or we can say that it is mainly about colloidal chemistry. First of all, we should know what is the meaning of colloid or where the word come from. So colloid word has come from word colla word, which literally means odds or glue. Now, as we are talking about colloidal chemistry, we should know also father of colloidal chemistry. Who is considered the father of colloidal chemistry? That is Thomas Graham. Or as you might know that this question is also come in our RUSC half yearly examination. So colloidal chemistry word comes from colla word, which means also glue like substance, and the father of colloidal chemistry is considered as colloidal. Now there are two types of fundaments here. So first is colloid and second is crystalloid. Second is crystalloid. Now what's the difference between them? Let's find out. Colloids are subjects or substances which does not pass from semi-permeable membrane, or let's say animal membrane. These are known as colloid. Now what's crystalloid? It's just opposite of colloid. Substances which can easily pass from animal membrane or semi-permeable membrane. So this is the difference between colloid and crystalloid. We could say that crystalloids are true solutions. When we talk about crystalloids, they are true solutions. Now what's the true solution? True solution are those type of solution in which solute and solvent cannot be differentiated after once they are mixed. But when we talk about colloids, they are not true solution. Not true solutions. They are not true solutions. So this is the difference between colloids and crystalloid. And who did that classification? It was Thomas Graham. It was Thomas Graham. That's why he is considered the father of colloidal chemistry. Now next we move further. Then comes the particles. Which particles? Of course, colloidal particles. And when we talk about colloidal particles, mainly it comes about their size. What is the size of colloidal particles? Size of colloidal particles ranges between 1 to 100 millimicron. What's that? We can even say that it is around 1 to 100 nanometer. Now why is that? Because milli means 10 to the power minus 3 and micro means 10 to the power minus 6. So both combine to 10 to the power minus 9, which is equals to nanometer. So this is the size. We can either say 1 to 100 millimicron or 1 to 100 nanometer. Now when it comes to maximum size limit, what is the maximum size limit for a colloidal particle? That is around 500 millimicron, or let's say 500 nanometer is the same. So colloidal particles have maximum size of 500 millimicron and they generally ranges between 1 to 100 millimicron. Now that's the introduction about colloidal particles and colloids. Next we move to properties of colloidal particles. Properties of colloids. Properties of colloids. First of all, we see heterogeneous nature. Heterogeneous nature. Now, what's the meaning of heterogeneous nature? Let's say we mix salt in water. Now, after mixing the salt, we cannot differentiate between solute and solvent. Even with microscope, we cannot see the particles of salt after being dissolved in water. But when we mix oil in water, first of all it will not dissolve, but by emulsifier if we are able to dissolve it, we can differentiate between oil particles and water particles with microscope because it will be not properly mixed. So heterogeneous means that the solute and solvent are of differentiated, like if example it's milk, it's a heterogeneous mixture. Blood, heterogeneous mixture. Why? Because when we go under microscope, milk and blood can be differentiated. It means milk, when go under microscope, particles of protein, vitamins, fat molecules or fat globules can be seen. Similarly, when we put blood under microscope, we can see RBC and WBC and other element of blood. So we can say the colloidal particles or colloidal solution have heterogeneous nature. Now, second comes the Tyndall effect. Now this is important. Tyndall effect. Now what is Tyndall effect? First of all, to show you Tyndall effect, let me bring a beaker. So here I go and here I chose a beaker. Yeah. And let me copy that beaker for you. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm throwing a light beam. Let's say I'm throwing a light beam over here. So this is our light beam. Yes, this is our light beam. Let me fill this up for you, like color with like this, or let's say no color, just change its boundary or boundary walls. So this is the color. Now let's say this is a light source. This is our light source. Here, this is our light source. This is true solution. This is true solution. And this is colloidal solution. Colloidal solution. Now what's the difference between colloidal solution and true solution under a light beam? That when a light beam is passed through, let me change the color, it's not visible properly, so I'm gonna change it with the no, not working. Yes, this would work, I think. So this is a light beam. Now what's the difference between true solution and colloidal solution under a light beam? When a light beam is passed through true solution, there is no visible path of light in a true solution. But when a light beam is passed through colloidal solution, then light beam path can be seen in colloidal solution. This effect is known as Tyndall effect. This effect is known as Tyndall effect. Tyndall effect. Now, what we gonna write about if a question come about Tyndall effect? That when a light beam is passed through true solution, the path of light beam cannot be seen. But if we pass light beam through our colloidal solution or any colloidal solution, the path of light beam can be seen. This effect is known as Tyndall effect. And what is the reason behind Tyndall effect? Scattering of light. Scattering of light. Scattering of light. So this is the reason behind Tyndall effect, that is scattering of light. So here we go with the Tyndall effect. Now what is third? Third is our effect is known as Brownian motion. Important है, students keep in mind Brownian motion. Brownian motion, yes, Brownian motion. Now what is Brownian motion? Take the beaker again and we will find out. Now let's say we have this one right here, and yes, so we took a beaker and we know that beaker is filled with colloidal solution. Beaker has colloidal solution. Now when we see colloidal solution through microscope, we see that the colloidal particles are moving on a undefined path. Let's say from first event from here to here, now next here, this, and this type. The movement like zigzag motion. It's like this, undefined motion, and like this. The motion is random. Motion is random on random path. Means we cannot define the exact motion where the particle will go. It keeps moving. Due to this, colloidal solutions are stable, or we can say it is a part of stability behind the colloidal solutions. So what we know about colloidal solution, or let's say Brownian motion, we say that when we see colloidal particles under microscope, we see that colloidal particles keeps moving on a zigzag path or on a random path. This motion is known as Brownian motion. So what we gonna say that when we see colloidal particles under a microscope, we see that colloidal particles keeps moving on a random or on a zigzag path. This motion is known as Brownian motion. So this is the third property of colloids. Now what's the next property? Let's me copy that for you. So I copied that and put it on the next side. Yeah. So what's the next property? First let's delete these as we have done with them. So I deleted them. So what is the next property? That is charge. That is charge. That what is the charge on colloidal solution? Keep in mind always that all colloidal particles have same charge. All colloidal particles have same charge, and due to this they are stable. This is the reason behind stability. This is the reason behind stability. So we can say that all colloidal particles have same charge on them, be positive or negative. It could be positive or negative. And when it comes to soil colloid, soil colloid have negative charge. Soil colloid have a negative charge. Next property comes in, that is diffusion. Actually, we have talked about it earlier. It is like colloids cannot pass through semi-permeable membrane, or colloids cannot diffuse from semi-permeable membrane. Can't diffuse from semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane, and we know that this was the base. On the basis we categorized colloids and crystalloids. So obviously they will not diffuse from a semi-permeable membrane, or let's say animal membrane. Now what's the next point? That is precipitation. That is precipitation. That is precipitation. Now what's that? As we know, colloids have same charge on them. Colloids have same charge on them. Have same charge. Same charge on them. Colloidal particles have same charge. So if we put electrolyte in colloid, electrolyte means it will have positive and negative ion, both positive and negative ion. So what we're gonna do, it will reduce or destroy the it will reduce or destroy the charge. Either it will reduce or destroy the charge, and due to this colloidal particles colloidal particles join each other, and this leads to precipitation. So what we gonna do about the precipitation, or write about precipitation if it comes to an exam? That we know that colloids have same charge on them, or colloidal particles have same charge on them, be positive or negative. It could be positive or negative. And when we add electrolyte in the colloidal solution, electrolyte has both ion, positive and negative. So it does not matter colloids have negative charge or positive charge. If it has positive charge, then negative ion of colloid will attach to colloidal particles, or if colloids have positive ion on them, then negative ion of electrolyte will attach to colloidal particles. And due to this, either the charge of colloidal particles will be totally destroyed, or totally, we can say, ended by these electrolyte, and or either it will reduce the charge, and due to this colloidal particles join each other and will make a big chunk or big molecule. And due to this big molecule, now gravity will apply on them, and it will go down to the bottom of the basin, or we can say whatever beaker or other source, and this will known as precipitation. So precipitation, simple words, is that when we add electrolyte in colloidal solution, it will reduce or destroy the charge on colloidal particles. Due to colloidal particles join each other and they will get precipitated. This is known as precipitation. And one thing keep in mind, that reason behind their stability of colloidal particles in charge, because the charge on colloidal particle is same, so they cannot stick to each other or join each other, and they keeps floating or suspending in a colloidal solution. So these are the main properties of any colloid. So first we talk about heterogeneous nature, means Dispersed phase and dispersion medium can be differentiated even after mixing the both or after preparation of colloids. So this is means heterogeneous nature because they are not true solution. Second is Tyndall effect. What is Tyndall effect? That when we pass a light beam through a colloidal solution, the path of light beam can be seen. This effect is known as Tyndall effect. And what was the reason behind Tyndall effect? That is scattering of light. Now third comes the Brownian motion. What is Brownian motion? That when we see colloidal solution in microscope or under microscope, we see that colloidal particles keeps moving on random or zigzag path. This motion is known as Brownian motion. Next property was charge. That what are the charge on colloidal particles? Keep in mind, be soil colloid or any other colloid for that matter, the charge on all colloidal particles will be same, be it positive or be it negative. Means it could be negative or positive, and this is the only reason, or we could say the biggest reason behind the stability of colloids, because due to same charge on colloidal particles they cannot attach with each other, and if we do not if they do not attach with each other, they will not make a big molecule and they will not precipitate it. Next is diffusion. Diffusion means simply passing through semi-permeable membrane or animal membrane. And as we know, colloids are those particles which cannot pass through animal membrane. So colloids will not show diffusion. Next is precipitation. Now what is precipitation? As we know that colloidal particles have same charge on them, and when we add electrolyte could be anything. Electrolyte could be anything like NaCl, it could be an acid, it could also be an base, or it could also be an any salt. Let's say it could be like Na2SO4 or K2SO4. So these are all electrolytes, and then when they are added in colloidal solution, they will ionized or dissociated in ions, and they will have both ion, positive and negative ion, and due to these ions the charge on colloidal particles will either be reduced or will be completely destroyed. And due now when colloidal particles don't have charge on them, they will attach to each other and make a big molecule, and this big molecule due to gravity comes to the bottom of a basin or any beaker, and due to this process is known as coagulation, or we can also say it precipitation. As you might have seen that when we add alum in water, the dirt comes down to the bottom of the basin or flask or whatever we have, let's say test tube. So this is also known as precipitation. So next we move to soil colloid property. Soil colloid property. Now what is that? Earlier we talked about properties of colloidal solutions. Now we are talking about the properties of a soil colloid. Now what are these? First is cohesion and adhesion. Cohesion and adhesion. What is that? Let's talk about first cohesion. Cohesion. What is cohesion? Cohesion is like attraction between similar molecules. Attraction between similar molecules. Similar molecules. And what is adhesion? Adhesion is like attraction between different molecules. That is adhesion. Mainly definition is the main important here. We can say like when we talk about attraction between two molecules of water or benzene or whatever it is, if they are same, then it is called cohesion. And if the attraction is between two different molecules, like attraction between water molecule and alcohol molecule, or let's say if we draw water on the wall, then the attraction between wall and water is known as adhesion. Now, second property of soil colloid is plasticity. Plasticity. What is that? Plasticity is like when we apply force on something, it changes its shape, and when we remove that particular force, it comes back in its initial pose or initial position. This is known as plasticity. Now, plasticity is maximum. There are two type of clay minerals which have maximum and mineral plasticity. One has maximum and one has minimum. Keep in mind that Mont Morillonite has highest plasticity. Mont Morillonite. Mont Morillonite has highest plasticity, and when we talk about minimum plasticity, that is of kaolinite. Kaolinite. Kaolinite has least plasticity. Now, if we move to next, that is flocculation and deflocculation. Flocculation and deflocculation. What is that? Flocculation and deflocculation. 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 Now, what is that? As we all know that soil colloid have negative charge on it. Soil colloid have negative charge on it, and if we add some electrolyte to it, due to same charge, the when we add electrolyte, the charge of colloid will be destroyed or it will be reduced, and due to reduced or destroyed charge, colloidal particles join each other and they come to the bottom of a flask or whatever we have, and this process is known as deflocculation. So what is flocculation? Precipitation of colloidal particles. And what is deflocculation? Deflocculation simply means precipitate to colloidal solution, means when precipitate goes from precipitate to colloidal solution, this is deflocculation, and when colloidal solution is precipitated due to some reasons, this is known as flocculation. And the last property of this is swelling and contraction. Swelling and contraction. Now, what is swelling and contraction? As you might have seen that when we pour some water on soil, it gets some swelling, or we can say the volume of soil increases, and when water dries up, volume of solution gets reduced, and due to reduction in volume, we see that there are cracks developed in the soil. So swelling simply means when water is added to the soil, volume increases, and that's why it gets swelled, and when water is dried up, volume decreases and contraction happens. Keep in mind that maximum swelling is of Mont Morillonite. Mont Morillonite. Maximum swelling is in the Mont Morillonite, and when we talk about minimum, who shows the minimum swelling? That is of course kaolinite. Kaolinite. That is kaolinite. One second. Kaolinite. Okay. So these are the main four properties of soil colloid. Keep in mind that if he is asking for properties of colloids or soil colloids, if we are talking about soil colloid property, then are these adhesion, plasticity, and swelling and contraction, and flocculation and deflocculation. And if we are talking about the properties of colloids, then it would be the last we did, like Tyndall effect and all that. Now next we move to classification of soil colloid. classification. Classification of soil colloid. There are mainly two types of soil colloids, that is inorganic and organic. Organic and inorganic. Now when we talk about organic colloids, there is mainly humus, as simple as that. And when we talk about inorganic colloids, there are mainly two types of colloids. What are these? First is silicate clay. First is of silicate clay, and second is iron aluminium hydroxide. Iron aluminium hydroxide. So these are mainly two types or two categories of silicate clay. And in our syllabus there are silicate clay. How many of them? Three actually. What are these? Or we can say first is kaolinite. Kaolinite. Second is montmorillonite. And third is illite. So when we talk about classification of soil colloids, there are mainly two types of soil colloids, that is inorganic and organic. Organic mainly contains humus, and inorganic is of two types. First is silicate clay and second is iron aluminium hydroxide. Silicate clay again is of three types. First is kaolinite, montmorillonite and illite. Now keep in mind that soil colloids, mainly inorganic soil colloid, inorganic soil colloid is known as mineral colloid, as they are minerals and size of them is less than 2 micron. Size is less than 2 micron, or let's say 0.002 mm is the same. And inorganic soil colloids are mainly secondary minerals. As you might have remembered that the minerals are of two types, primary and secondary. Primary minerals are those which are of size more than 2 micron, and secondary minerals are those which have size of less than 2 micron. So these are of secondary mineral category. Now next we move to type of clay minerals. First we talk about kaolinite. Now kaolinite, there is one layer of silica, and formula of silica, keep in mind that SiO2. Next there is one layer of alumina, that is Al2O3. As we can see, there is one layer of silica and one layer of alumina. That's why it is also known as 1:1 type clay or silicate clay. Next, binding molecules means the molecules which are binding the two layers of alumina and silica is oxygen and OH minus means hydroxide. Two layer binding them is oxygen and hydroxide. Next we talk about the formula, that is Al4 Si4 O10 OH8. That is the formula, and keep in mind that kaolinite has least plasticity and cohesion, least plasticity and cohesion, contraction and swelling type of properties. Now when we talk about the structure, it is of two type. Let's make that structure. And yes, here we have, so first layer is of silica, or let's say SiO2. Second is of Al2O3. Again it is silica or SiO2, and here we have alumina. As we know, soil colloid have negative charge, so they will absorb positive charge. So they absorbed positive charge here like this, and here we will have oxygen or hydroxide atom, which is binding the two layers of clay minerals, and this distance is known as non expansion distance. As we have talked about that kaolinite has less expansion properties, so this distance is not very much. And here are the cations which can be used as exchange. Next we move to our next clay mineral, that is Montmorillonite. Montmorillonite. Now what is Montmorillonite? First of all, it have two layer of silica. It have two layer of silica, one layer of alumina, and as we can see that there is two layer of silica and one layer of alumina. That's why it is known as 2:1 type clay. 2:1 type clay. Next we move to the binding molecules. So keep in mind that here binding molecule is only oxygen. Next, what is the formula? That is Al4. As we can see that silica layer has been doubled. The silica will also double in formula, to 4 to 8, oxygen O2 10 20. OH, as we can see, binding molecule hydroxide is not present, or we can say that binding molecule is only oxygen. That's why number of hydroxide will get reduced to half, means 4. So this is the formula. And keep in mind that there are some properties like cohesion, plasticity, and adhesion, swelling and contraction is maximum in Montmorillonite. Next, if we talk about structure, so how we gonna make? First, like this, we need to make 3 layers out of it. So as there are 3 layers, 1 2 and 3. So first is silica. First layer is of obviously silica, second is of alumina, and third is of silica, and same repeat itself, silica, alumina and silica. Here we'll have positive ions as clay have negative ion on it. Same here, draw the positive ions, and here will be oxygens binding the layers of a clay mineral. This is known expansion distance, and keep in mind that this distance is more than that of a kaolinite. And here we'll have cation exchange. So this is the structure of montmorillonite. Third is illite. It is almost similar to montmorillonite as it has two layer of silica. That is SiO2, one layer of alumina means Al2O3. So it is obviously of 2:1 type silica. 2:1 type silica, or we can say clay silicate. Next, if we talk about binding molecule, obviously here is binding molecule oxygen. And what is the formula? Now keep in mind that here is one potassium atom between two molecules, of clay. How? And that's why the formula is as similar as montmorillonite. First we write down the formula of montmorillonite, that is SiAl4 Si8O20 OH4, but here one potassium atom will be extra. And the properties like cohesion, adhesion, and plasticity, swelling and contraction is of medium, means not too high, not too less. And if we talk about structure, it is almost same. Let me copy that for you. So yes, here we have copied that and move it to next. Yes, so structure is almost same, but the special thing is here we will see that there is also a potassium atom in between the two crystals of the clay. So this is the structure of, we can say, of kaolinite. Structure of illite. This is of montmorillonite. And this is of kaolinite. Okay, so they are the main clay silicate or clay minerals. Next we move to properties of their clay minerals. First is kaolinite. Next is illite, and third is montmorillonite. Now first we talk about the size. So keep in mind that kaolinite minerals have highest particle size that varies from like 0.1 to 5 micron. Illite has particle size similar to 0.1 to 2 micron, and montmorillonite size is like 0.01 to 0.1 micron. As we can see that minimum particle size is of montmorillonite, and keep in mind that the minimum the size, highest the surface area. Second is surface area. So kaolinite is with least surface area, it is of medium, and it is maximum. It is maximum surface area. Now, when we talk about surface area, we should also talk about the internal surface area. Internal surface area, that is same least, medium, and maximum. Then comes the cation exchange capacity. So kaolinite has minimum cation exchange capacity, illite has medium cation exchange capacity, and Mont Morillonite have maximum cation exchange capacity. And we go to specific 60 to 80 centimole kg inverse. And if we talk about illite, it is around 20 to 40. And if we talk about kaolinite, it has around 3 to 15. That is the cation exchange capacity. And if we talk about some properties like cohesion, and we have talked about its properties like these earlier as well: cohesion, adhesion, and plasticity, and some like contraction and swelling. So that is also kaolinite has minimum property. Kaolinite is minimum, this is medium, and this is maximum. And last is anion exchange. Last is anion exchange. Next we move to is anion exchange. Keep in mind that anion exchange will be highest in kaolinite as it have cation exchange minimum. So it is maximum, yes, same, medium, and it will be minimum in Mont Morillonite. So these are the properties of three clay minerals: kaolinite, illite, and Mont Morillonite. Keep them in mind by some logic. Say that kaolinite has maximum particle size, so surface area is minimum, and Mont Morillonite has minimum particle size, so their surface area is maximum. Surface area is maximum, that's why internal surface area is maximum. Cation exchange capacity is maximum. Cohesion, plasticity, swelling, contraction, and adhesion, that is also maximum. But anion exchange will be minimum in Mont Morillonite as it has cation exchange capacity maximum. Next, we talk about the importance of clay minerals. Importance of clay minerals. Now, what are the importance? First, obviously, fertility. Keep in mind that clay minerals increases the fertility of soil. Second is water holding capacity. Water holding capacity. Water holding capacity. Keep in mind that higher the quantity of clay mineral, higher will be the water holding capacity, and it will also depend on the quantity and kind of clay minerals. Let's say we have kaolinite and Mont Morillonite at the same time with the same quantity, then Mont Morillonite will increase the water holding capacity more, and kaolinite will increase. It will also increase, but the increase will be less than that of Mont Morillonite. Third is cation exchange capacity or cation exchange. Same goes with cation exchange as it went with the water holding capacity. Higher the clay minerals, higher will be the cation exchange, and if we have Mount Morganite, then cation exchange will be more rapid than that of a kaolinite. Next is nutrients, nutrient absorption, nutrient absorption, absorption or adsorption. It will also same, higher the clay mineral, higher the nutrient absorption. And second last is nutrient storage, nutrient storage, and same goes with nutrient storage. So these are just normal properties, and which they should, you should know that these are headings, you know, you can write down in these heading in your own language depending, and keep in mind that they are all positive properties, so you can go with anything with positive. Next is inorganic clay minerals, inorganic clay colloids or inorganic clay minerals, inorganic, sorry, organic. Next is organic clay colloids, organic clay colloids, and that is we know is humus. Now what is humus? When some organic compounds are decomposed and made new compounds, these new organic compounds are known as humus. Humus is mainly made up of three elements: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And keep in mind that humus have highest cation exchange capacity, even higher than that of Mount Morganite. And humus have also negative charge, humus also have a negative charge on it. Next, when we talk about the nature of humus, keep in mind that it is of acidic nature, acidic nature. Humus have acidic nature on this, and binding effect of humus is higher than that of any clay mineral, even higher than that of Mount Morganite. Next is, so keep in mind that if the question comes about the organic clay colloids, it is talking about the humus, you can write about it. Next is difference between organic and inorganic, organic and inorganic colloids. Inorganic, soil colloid, soil colloid, organic and inorganic. Organic colloid is mainly made of humus. Inorganic colloid is made up of mainly silicate clay, silicate and iron aluminium hydroxide, iron aluminium hydroxide. Next, if we talk about humus, it is mainly made of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and while inorganic is made up of like Fe, aluminium, silicon and oxygen. They are organic compounds, obviously name suggests organic compounds. And what are inorganic? They are mainly minerals, they are minerals. Next, if we talk about negative charge, negative charge, organic compounds have negative charge due to presence of OH group, COOH group and phenolic group, while inorganic compounds have negative charge due to presence of OH minus group. Next, CEC. Next we talk about the CEC, cation exchange capacity. Organic compounds or organic soil colloids have CEC around 150 to 300 centimole per kg, and inorganic compounds have CEC around 3 to 100 centimole per kg. That is the main difference of these. Next, we can talk about some random properties like organic compounds have higher plasticity, inorganics have lower, and same goes with adhesion and cohesion. So, next, when we talk about the importance of organic soil colloid. Now, importance is first is it increases the soil structure, or we can say it improves the soil structure. It makes them granular. Makes them granular. Next is like CEC, cation exchange capacity. It increases obviously. We have talked about it here as well. CEC. This one. Next, third property we could say about the water holding capacity as well. Water holding capacity. Water holding capacity. So same goes with like it increases the water holding capacity more than even Mount Moissanite. Same are like temperature. Now keep in mind that humus is mainly of dark color. Due to dark color, it stores the sun heat from the sunlight, and it is used for plants when there is no daylight or in the night. So next is plasticity and cohesion. So we can say that plasticity and cohesion also increases due to organic soil colloid. And one more important comes here is that is buffering capacity. That is buffering capacity. Now, what is buffering capacity? Buffering capacity simply means the power to resist pH change. Power to resist pH change. So, keep in mind that higher organic soil colloids or humus increase the buffering capacity. So these are the importance of the soil colloid. Now we can say about the last topic of our chapter, that is origin of charge. Origin of charge on clay minerals. Origin of charge on clay minerals. As we talked about earlier that humus have negative charge, even the silicate clay particles have negative charge on it. Now we are going to talk about why they have negative charge and not positive charge. Here there are mainly two reasons for that. First is exposed or open crystal edges. We can say exposed or open, whatever you want to say. Exposed crystal edges. And second is isomorphic substitution. As you might remember that question from isomorphic substitution also appeared in our half yearly exams. Substitutions. Now we talk about them separately. First is exposed crystal edges. Exposed crystal edges. Now for this, let me draw a cube for you like Let's say we have a cube here. As we can see that cube of clay crystal will look like similar like this. Okay, so these are the edges of crystal. Now on these edges there are unbalanced valencies. Yeah, unsatisfied unsatisfied valencies, and due to these unsatisfied valencies there are negative charge on them. On these edges the cations mainly not present and there are only oxygen and hydroxide, and we both know them that OH minus means hydroxide have negative charge, and same goes with oxygen also have negative charge. And due to these negatively charged particle being on the surface of crystal, that's why these soil colloids have negative charge on them. We can see the example of it, like we had silicon hydroxide. So what happens here is that silicon hydroxide pairs with another hydroxide groups and it makes SiO minus plus H2O, creating the negative charge on it. Next, we talk about isomorphic substitution. Isomorphic substitution. Now, what is this? Isomorphic substitution simply means exchange of similar cations. Exchange of similar cations. We can explain this through example like this. We have a clay crystal here, and let's change the color, and one copy here as well. So let's say this is clay crystal and it have two oxygen atom on it and one silicon on it. And what happens here is when this silicon is being replaced by aluminium ion, so oxygen remains same and silicon is replaced by Al plus 3. Here we can say negative 4 positive 4 equals to 0 means neutral, but here we can say charge is negative. Why charge is negative? Because minus 4 plus 3 equals to minus 1 and silicon is substituted by aluminium ion. Same example could also be given, like if we put another clay crystal and here we have Al plus 3 and the negative charge we have with like O minus 2 and OH minus, and if it is replaced with Mg plus 2, if it is replaced with Mg plus 2, then we can see that one is O minus 2, other is OH minus, and now we have here is Mg plus 2 resulting in negative charge. So this is called isomorphic substitution. Simply means exchange of similar cations in the sense exchanges with positive cations resulting in overall negative charge or unbalanced valencies. So students, here are chapter number 3 completed, and if you want to download this PDF of this chapter, you can join our Telegram channel. The link is given in the description, and if you like the video, hit that like button and also subscribe if you haven't, and keep watching. Now we try to upload these type of videos regularly, and if you are interested in some important questions, so we are also going to launch important question from the point of view of board of exam. So thank you.